Good morning, and welcome back to the Daily Trucking Market Update podcast. I'm your host, Driven, and on this show, I dive into the markets to keep you truck drivers, you owner operators, up to date so you can best position your truck to make the most money. Now, I'll be using the DAT load board, and I appreciate them sponsoring this video. And in return, they've provided you with the link down in the description box for 10% off for your first 12 months, so check it out. Now, stick around. I got a dad joke to tell, and then we'll dive right in.
Rolling down the highway, sun just breaking through. Radio's playing loud, the show's for me and you. Learn how to book your loads and make that money flow. Keep the shiny side up wherever we go.
Now, all that I ask for the little chuckle, or maybe not, is to hit that like button and maybe consider subscribing if you get some value from this, or maybe just a laugh. Oh, so good. Good morning. Hope everybody's doing well. Hope y'all enjoyed y'all's Halloween. I had a unicorn and a wolf for Halloween, and we had a good time. It's also my daughter's birthday, so hence the balloons. I thought I'd just leave them there. But yeah, it's been nice. I had the. I'm sure that not everyone sees the community posts. You can only see community posts if one, you're subscribed to the channel, and two, you're on mobile. And I put out, I put out a community post saying that I was having internet issues. That was Wednesday. Was it Wednesday? Thursday? Heck, I don't remember what happened. I think it was Thursday actually, and then I had no intentions of uploading on Friday because I have my kids. So missed a couple days last week, but we're back at it. Real quickly, while we're on the topic, I'm going on vacation at the end of the month. So the last week of the month there won't be any videos at all. So just a heads up, I'll remind you guys as we get closer. But yeah, if I will keep you guys up to date. If you don't see the video by like 9 o'clock in the morning, that's my kind of ultimate goal would be 9. Then you can check the community posts. I've likely posted saying, maybe something went wrong or what's going on, keeping you guys in the loop. But the goal is to try to get these out, the van for here by 8:30. That's going to be the new goal. And I'm loving it. I've got good sunlight, which is much nicer. That was kind of something that was holding me back. So as we get deeper into winter, I'm curious how that plays out. But anyway, we're gonna move on. I don't want to get off too big of a tangent. I'm gonna do 2 dad jokes until we catch back up, right? Because we've got quite a few days. But why shouldn't you marry a tennis player? Because love means nothing to them. If you don't know tennis, that one's probably tough. Looks like we're only going to have 2 days of double jokes. Daylight savings ends. This was the weekend. I spent a lot of time, money, and effort childproofing my house, but the kids still got in. I'm sure that one's needed after Halloween and all the candy and all the good stuff. So I'm sure a lot of people can relate. So people are smart that put together these little books here. Anyway, we're going to get right to it. Let's hop in with the weather. We got lots of it. If you can't see the screen, there's rain, there's fog, there's mix, there's snow, there's severe, there's winds, there's all of the things. So certainly keep an eye on the weather. I highly recommend that you get a good app that you can use, that you trust, that you get used to. I use weatherstreet.com, but this is simply because I just like the way that it looks, and I think that it probably looks good for YouTube. It doesn't. It's probably not the greatest for if you're out there running the roads. So I advise you to get something else. But this is what I use for the visuals. So starting off in the Northwest, you've got snow. You got snow, what looks like to be the mountains up there, Washington, Oregon. You got some in Idaho, and then you've got a lot in that northern tip of Montana. You got some fog all over the place in Idaho and out there in eastern Oregon, eastern Washington as well. The wind is blowing down there in Southern California, so I know you guys know what that means. So be careful if you're crossing, especially empty down there. You got another snowstorm, partial in Wyoming, um, but mainly in Colorado and New Mexico. Lots of snow in Colorado. Avoid 70, certainly, if you can help it. Avoid 42. Looks like 10 is probably fine. You got a lot of rain as well that stretches from New Mexico across the northern portion of Texas, covering Oklahoma. The severe portion of the weather is looks to be on the Texas Oklahoma border. It's not going to be a highly trafficked area, but I don't know which way that's moving yet. So we'll look to see whenever we roll this thing forward a couple days. We'll kind of see what's going on there. And then you've got lots of rain up there in Minnesota, Wisconsin. That coupled with fog, and then this storm that's covering Oklahoma also stretches from Arkansas all the way up through Michigan with heavy rain all along there. So, kind of scrolling through, let's see what it's doing a little bit later today. Yeah, that storm that's in Texas, Oklahoma is going to grow and it's going to get pretty bad as the day progresses. So certainly keep an eye on that if you're anywhere remotely close to that. The system that's up there in the northwest, it's going to dump more snow. It's going to dump a good amount of snow in Washington, somewhat in Washington, but mainly Idaho and Montana. Idaho is going to get smoked. Montana is going to get smoked. And then as we move into tomorrow, that's going to grow, and that's going to cover the majority of Montana. Going to get a lot in Wyoming as well. And then we're starting to see purple. So that's not good at all. There's going to be ice up there. So if you're up there in the northwest, certainly be careful. The storm that's in Colorado and New Mexico, it's going to move on through Oklahoma, Kansas, but it's going to turn into rain. But that's severe stuff. Be careful if you're in the Dallas area as well. Dallas, anywhere in Oklahoma, even Arkansas, and then up through Missouri. Yeah. So yeah, keep an eye on that weather, folks. Be safe out there. All right. Looking at the national load counts, this is where I like to start. This gives us a good idea of overall what's going on in the market. This is going to tell us on a state basis what the truck to load ratio is. This is going to tell you a couple of things. Number one, it's going to tell you if you have negotiating power, or it's going to tell you if you just need to grab a load and go. Okay, this is not the end all be all, though. In a couple of minutes, we're going to look at where the freight is actually at in the different states. Good example of this is California. There's a lot of excess loads that are in California, but not all markets in California are going to be loaded. So you may not have negotiating power everywhere in California. So you need more than just this right here. However, this gives us a nice place to start. So let's start. Alabama, 616 loads in, 341 loads out. That's normal. Arkansas, 283 loads in, 396 loads out. Okay start for Arkansas for the week. But, we're well above that 50-50 line. So love to see that. Arizona, 439 loads in to 390 loads out. By the way, for Arizona, someone dropped in the comments that it's cotton season over there. So that is likely the reason why there is a little bit extra freight. But I don't imagine that that's going to last too terribly long. So, yeah, moving on. California, 1,494 loads in, 2,734 loads out. So good start to the week for California. Last week, that as the week went on, that production increased dramatically. So if we see that, California is going to be in really, really good shape. You've got negotiating power there today, though. Colorado, 449 loads in, 264 loads out. It's normal. Connecticut, 201 loads in, 77 loads out. DC's got a load. Delaware, 64 loads in, 53 loads out. Florida, 1,699 loads in, 507 loads out. So obviously that's terrible shape. It's really not worth talking about that much. But what I will say is there's not quite as many loads headed in as usual. And just a tad more loads headed out than usual. Do with that what you will. Georgia, 1,419 loads in, 915 loads out. That's about the best ratio that we've seen recently. Not great, not, just grab a load and get the heck out, but, maybe we're moving in the right direction. I don't know, seems like a stretch. Iowa, 302 loads in, 450 loads out. Great start to the week for Iowa. Love to see that. Some negotiating power in Iowa. It's going to depend on, market to market, as well as a little bit of what the states around it are doing. Not a lot of people are bouncing towards Iowa. So you got some negotiating power there in Iowa, but look at the different markets and see what's going on. Idaho, 76 loads in, 209 loads out. So both numbers down and likely because of the weather that's up there. Regardless, okay start to the week for the Northwest. Illinois, 1,013 loads in, 1,501 loads out. We're seeing a lot of low numbers today, so that's interesting. Not sure why. Maybe people are off. Maybe people are still, kind of getting ready from being off. Maybe they took a long weekend from Halloween because Halloween was on Thursday. And anybody with smaller kids, would at least want to be home for that, So I imagine that probably has something to do with it. And then a lot of owner operators take this quarter off, as well. So that's something to keep in mind too. You're going to start seeing a lot of that. A lot of people will take off starting Halloween, and then they won't fire the truck back up till, a lot of times at least January, but sometimes even February, March. But okay shape for Illinois. Not going to say great. I'm just going to say okay. Not a ton of negotiating power there. Going to be dependent a little bit on the surrounding states. Indiana, 668 loads in, 974 loads out. Kind of the same situation as Illinois. Decent start though. Okay. Numbers are down though. Numbers are down. Kansas, 254 loads in, 289 loads out. Down as well, but at least we're seeing it above that 50-50 line. Kentucky, 429 loads in, 575 loads out. So that is a slight increase on both. But that's been the norm for the past about 2 weeks. So hopefully that trend continues, and Kentucky can kind of hold on there. Louisiana, 283 loads in, 391 loads out. Fascinating. That's way above normal for Louisiana. We will look at what the Texas markets are doing, but we need to go and see what's where that freight's actually located. So we'll look at that in a few minutes. Massachusetts, 321 loads in, 172 loads out. Maryland, 413 loads in, 299 loads out. Maine, 66 loads in, 62 loads out. Michigan, 512 loads in, 675 loads out. So about the norm for trucks in for Michigan, a little bit less than what we've been seeing over the past couple of weeks for loads out. Yeah, so we certainly want to keep an eye on that. With the weather kind of heading that way, I didn't see snow, so since I didn't see snow, there will likely still be a decent amount of trucks up there. But if the trend continues, which there's no reason to think that it will do otherwise, trends continue until they prove you wrong. That's certainly the way that you want to go. So if you had plans to go into Michigan, I would say, still a fine idea. But you certainly want to start to keep an eye on it. And if it proves us wrong this week, I would say if it proves us wrong 2 weeks in a row, then then you may want to change your hunting hole, change your lanes. But as of right now, it's a little bit low in production, but then again, so is everything else. So we'll see how it progresses. Minnesota also way low as well, 325 loads in to 438 loads out. So Great Lakes states a little bit weak today. Missouri, 534 loads in, 756 loads out. So Missouri's been coming on strong. They've been increasing that production every week. Not much, just a little bit here and there, but trending in the right direction for sure. Mississippi, 276 loads in to 335 loads out. That's good for Mississippi, but it's surrounded by states that don't have a lot of freight, so all that excess gets eaten up. Montana, 59 loads in to 57 loads out. North Carolina, 1,112 loads in to 675 loads out. It's the norm, unfortunately, for them. North Dakota, 57 loads in to 109 loads out. So missing about a third of the freight there for North Dakota. Still have some negotiating power, but not as many loads as normal. So brokers may be kind of feeling that squeeze, and they may be less likely to negotiate. So keep that in mind as well. This may be just a broker week. Unfortunately, it's everything's cyclical. It's a circle. It's up and down. So this week looks to be a little down. Nebraska 208 loads in, 160 loads out. New Hampshire 119 loads in to 17 loads out. Jersey 598 loads in, 618 loads out. That's horrendous for Jersey. Is it DOT week or something, or brake check week? Like, what's going on? Really rough shape for Jersey. New Mexico 129 loads in, 81 loads out. Nevada 198 loads in, 356 loads out. So production down a little bit in Nevada, but you got not as many trucks headed that way as well. So you still have the negotiating power in Nevada. However, it's decreased a little bit, a lot less than some other states though. New York 657 loads in, 746 loads out. So really not good shape at all for the Northeast. Ohio 1,090 loads in, 1,518 loads out. So bit of a slip for both, but almost proportionate. So the negotiating power is kind of the same there. It's going to depend on markets, what we see in Pennsylvania, what we see in Michigan, as far as negotiating power in Ohio. Oklahoma 329 loads in to 191 loads out. Oregon 183 loads in, 277 loads out. So, slip for Oregon, big slip for Oregon as well. Northwest they're still hanging up. There's more freight than trucks up there at the moment, but unfortunately, production is slipping across the board. Really, Pennsylvania 1,264 loads in to 1,448 loads out. Once again, slips on both sides, but this is one of the better states that I've seen so far. So I look to see. It's going to depend where the freight's at, but Pennsylvania is actually in better shape than most. That being said, there's not a ton of negotiating power, unfortunately. Rhode Island 60 loads in to 20 loads out. South Carolina 548 loads in to 563 loads out. This is the first time that we've seen a southeastern state outside of Mississippi above that 50-50 line. That being said, it's very, very weak, and that's a low amount of trucks headed in even for South Carolina. So number might be a little bit deceiving there. South Dakota is 72 loads in to 51 loads out. That's a big slip for South Dakota. It's an increase of trucks headed in, as well as a decrease of loads headed out. So not great for South Dakota. Tennessee 787 loads in to 574 loads out. So not great for Tennessee. Texas 2,796 loads in to 2,009 loads out. So one of the better ratios that we've seen, but production's way down in Texas as well. Utah 334 loads in to 278 loads out. I wonder if it's also the big. You guys know what's going on. I don't even want to talk about it because I don't want YouTube to do anything with my videos. But you guys know what's going on this week. I wonder if that may have something to do with it as well. I don't know. Utah 334 loads in to 278 loads out. So a slip for Utah. Virginia 713 loads in to 524 loads out. Vermont 24 loads in to 46 loads out. Washington 337 loads in to 390 loads out. Big slip for Washington as well. Wisconsin still in good shape, although it's a slip, but still in good shape. 582 loads in to 813 loads out. So really good shape for Wisconsin. Certainly negotiating power up there. West Virginia 115 loads in, 169 loads out, and Wyoming 55 loads in to 85 loads out. This is the trend lines, and early in the week, this is more relevant than it is later in the week because these numbers don't change a whole heck of a lot. But what this does is we get to quickly compare. The first number that I go over is going to be from last week to the week prior, so we can see kind of an immediate trend in the loads as well as the rates. And then the second number that I'm going to touch on would be the month of October of this year compared to the month of October for last year. Overall, the load posts as a whole Week over week, it's down 2.1%. But last month compared to last year, it's up 19.9%. So we are moving in the right direction. We have been since I've started doing this. Looks like that's continuing as well. Van, specifically load to truck, week over week, it's up 4.2%. And then year over year, up 37.3%. So there is a lot more freight this year than there was last year. Love to see that. As far as the rates go, though, week over week, it's down 1%. But year over year, it's up 0.5%. So you can see that there is not a strong correlation in the amount of freight as far as the rates go. And there should be. There should be. What that means is people are just accepting, they're kind of accepting their fate, right? They're not educated as far as what the market is doing, both in the short term, as in really short term, medium term, and long term, really. It's just a lack of education, to be honest, period. End of story, because it is a supply and demand market, nothing else. This is literally it. So when supply goes up, demand goes, demand for truck drivers goes up. Therefore, rates should go up. Very simple. Fortunately, we're not seeing that. For flatbeds, the load to truck ratio, week over week, it's down 2.6%. But and flatbeds have already been strong. Well, not strong, but they've been the best of the three. Year over year, it's up 62.8%. That's huge. That's absolutely huge. The spot rates week over week, it's the same. But this year compared to last year, it's up 3.2%. It's a little bit better than vans, to be expected. And then reefers, week over week, the loads are up 16.8%. So looks like we're getting in season. Go reefer, go. And then year over year, it's up 30.3%. And then the rates are up week over week 0.4%. But yearly, they're down 2.1%. So interesting ratio there. So to start off November, now keep in mind, we only have a couple of days of data. This is going to change. This will be more relevant like week 2, week 3. We'll have a better understanding because we don't have a large sample size. These are going to change very much so. But the vans this month compared to last month, so far, we're down 2 pennies to an even $2. Flatbed is down as well, 2 pennies to $2.40. Reefers are up 2 pennies to $2.41. That is the average across the board for all loads. And then the price to move the truck is $3.57 per gallon, which is up roughly 0.5%. Normal stuff, right? Normal stuff. All right. This is the heat map. This is what I was talking about. This is what tells us where's the freight, right? So I like to start up there in the Northwest. So all the freight in Washington is, of course, over there in the Seattle market. Or in Oregon, it's the western half. Man, I'm getting my east and west mixed up. It's the western half, but don't let that deceive you. There's not a ton of freight in the southern portions. There's an okay amount, but there's not a ton. The majority of that freight's going to be in Portland. Down in California, you've got a big blank spot in between Sacramento and Los Angeles. And then all of the other markets are hot outside of San Diego. That being said, the majority of the freight is going to be, kind of in that San Francisco market and that Los Angeles market. And you can never go wrong going to the southern portion of the state. It's kind of hit or miss if you're in the northern part, unless you've been running that and you know what's going on. You got brokers already set up. You know what you're doing. Over there in Arizona, the freight's in Phoenix. I don't even know why I mentioned that. That's a given. But Nevada, the freight is in the northern half, not in the southern half. So the excess that is in Nevada is in the northern half, which means that the Las Vegas market is weak. Sad to say. Over in Texas, we've got the Dallas market. So the Dallas market's hot, but the market just west of it is not. The Houston market is hot. And then looking at Louisiana, the majority of the freight is in the southern half. So definitely the nod this week goes to Houston. Usually Dallas pays a little bit better, but because there's a little bit more freight than normal in both Houston and Louisiana. Um, it shows to be less trucks, but once again, I still stand behind that. I think that a lot of truck drivers were just off this weekend, so you're not going to see a bunch of freight headed inward or inbound. I'm still going to give the nod to Houston though. But if you are in Houston, you can't find a load. Certainly check the Louisiana market as well, and the Dallas market, of course. Southeastern portion is barely worth even talking about. Supposedly Atlanta has the freight in that entire region. I don't know. That region frustrates me. Looking at the Midwest, Kansas seems to be an okay state to go to, just in general, I guess. But the majority of the freight is going to be in the Kansas City market. That's pretty normal. St. Louis market is not hot. Sad to say. Interesting. I mean, Tennessee and Kentucky they just don't look good. We saw such a slip in numbers, unfortunately. Illinois, you've got two hot markets in Illinois. You got the kind of the center. I don't know how to describe it other than that. And then you've got the Chicago market is hot, and we'll get to the Great Lakes states in a second. In Indiana, the Indianapolis market is hot. Of course, that's normal. Um, Ohio, Ohio's normally completely red. It's in good shape as far as the load to truck ratio, but it is down technically in freight in production. It's showing that the majority of the Ohio freight is up there in the Northwest, and because Michigan is in at least average or better, you're not going to see a lot of the Ohio freight eaten up because we got to look at Michigan and we got to look at Pennsylvania. And Pennsylvania is pretty much all hot, so that just means that the excess freight that is available in Pennsylvania is spread all across. If that Western market in Pennsylvania were average or below, I would say that Ohio is going to get eaten up, that excess, and so that kills your negotiation. But with the way that the freight is lined out, you should have negotiating power in Ohio if you are looking for loads coming out of there. Not a ton of negotiating power though coming out of PA. You might get people bouncing over to PA from Ohio. You're certainly going to get that from New York and Jersey. So the Philadelphia market, it just always gets eaten up, unfortunately. Um, Minimal negotiating power in Pennsylvania, if anything. And then the Great Lakes states, we already kind of touched Michigan, but the western half is going to have more freight than the Detroit market. Minnesota is just looking really rough. Yeah, it's just not looking good at all. It's down in freight. It's above that 50-50 line, but it's way down in freight. I think we're going to need a couple of weeks or a couple of days, not a couple of weeks, a couple of days to get through kind of what's going on with truck drivers and, coming out, getting back out on the roads this week. So this is one of those days. This is a tough day. This is a tough day to kind of plan too far ahead. Unfortunately, tough week. Even Wisconsin, like Green Bay market is normally the hot market, and it's not. It's showing the freight to kind of just be in the southern portion of Wisconsin. You've got you got freight over there close to Chicago, and it's looking like kind of close to Minneapolis. Technically, that is Wisconsin though. So if you are going to Minnesota, hopefully you're headed towards Minneapolis. You should be fine. You may have to bounce a little bit further than what you're used to, but if you are headed up there to Green Bay, you may need to look towards Chicago for freight. And that's it. That is going to cover the trucking market update this week. I made an executive decision to not start up Spotify quite yet. The reason being, I want to make sure that I start. I thought about it, and I want to make sure that I start on a Monday. And so last week would have been starting in the middle of the week. And then this week I have a doctor's appointment, or not a doctor, a dentist appointment, in a little bit. So, and this is priority number one to get this out and going. So because of that, I decided to delay it another week. I know. I apologize. I said something and thought better of it. Um, that being said, it is going to start up next week, no matter what. Um, so that will be going. Look for that. I am also heavily considering getting Flatbed out there, but that is going to be solely on Spotify as well. Um, yeah, I've got a lot of plans for stuff in the works. Just an awkward time at the moment for me. But anyway, hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, give it a thumbs up. You know, consider subscribing if you're still hanging around and you're not. It allows you to get the notifications of when these videos drop. It should be 8:30 on hopefully normally, but sometime between 8:30 and 9 every day, Monday through Friday, as long as I'm available, and that's most of the time. Other than that, I don't have much else for you. Y'all keep the shiny side up and stay driven. I'll see you guys tomorrow.